Alright everyone, welcome to the By the Minute Mixed Martial Arts show here on YouTube. My name is Jody Jamieson. We were supposed to do a podcast on UFC 211 over the past week. It's been one of those weeks, to be honest, so we will talk a little bit about the card, and then we will move on to talk about Bellator 179, which happens tonight, Invicta FC 23, which happens tomorrow. So quick look back to last week. UFC 211. I'm kind of torn about this because this was a really good show, but I think this kind of shows where MMA is in 2017 for me. I think that MMA is just cold at the moment and there's no getting away from that, and I think that this kind of showed it because we had two title fights on a main card. We had really good fights up and down the card with the exception of the opener of the main card. The prelims were absolutely fantastic on this card, but it just doesn't seem to be getting any of that outside attention, and I think we kind of predicted this was possible at the start of the year. I think there was always that thought in the back of our mind that with McGregor being out for a while, with Rousey being smashed on the 30th of December and probably not coming back, we were really waiting for somebody to take the ball and run, and that hasn't really happened yet in 2017. And we're in a situation at the moment in UFC where there's so much fighter unhappiness when you think about it. Like, the obvious solution, Conor's not there, Ronda's not there, we need a big name. The obvious solution is Nate Diaz, but he doesn't care. So I don't know what to expect with this, to be honest. But yeah, I thought UFC 211 was a really good show. So we'll start at the bottom and we'll work our way up. In fact, before we get to the card, we need to talk a little bit about the press conference the day before, which was basically like the summer kickoff press conference, which announced a bunch of fights that are coming up. So we have the OKC main event, which is Kevin Lee and Michael Chiesa. They had a bit of a brawl in the press conference. We got the Michael Johnson versus Justin Gaethje main event for the TUF finale, July, and then it's the Friday night in July, I can't remember the day. Obviously UFC 213 is going to be Amanda Nunes defending against Valentina Shevchenko. Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw scheduled for that card right now. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. Cody's got a back injury, and I don't think either side's that hopeful that it's going to happen. Then obviously the UFC 214 main event, Daniel Cormier and John Jones. That is the fight to me, Cormier and Jones, that if 2017 is going to turn around for UFC, I feel like that's going to be the fight, because I do feel like there's a lot of intrigue going into this fight, because I think we all kind of know that if John Jones is at his best, then he wins this fight. But what John Jones exists after all of the madness that happened, and it was strange because even though he won every round against Ovince St. Preux when he was back at UFC 197, he didn't look all that impressive. He certainly didn't look like the old John Jones. And Ovince St. Preux, for all that he's got some talents, he shouldn't be in the cage with John Jones. So yeah, another fight that was announced for Glasgow, for which obviously interests me, and I think it's going to be the co-main event, is Joanne Calderwood versus Cynthia Calvillo. And for me, I actually don't like this matchup for a couple of reasons. One, it's probably not a great matchup for Joanne because of how good Cynthia's ground game is. But Cynthia, as good as Cynthia's ground game is, her takedown entry is still a little bit suspect, and with Calderwood's skilled Muay Thai, it might be a difficult night for Calvillo. And I think with this fight, especially now that we've had the announcement of the TUF 26 being for the UFC women's flyweight title, I think the best case scenario here from a UFC standpoint is Cynthia Calvillo wins, because we've seen what Dana White thinks of Calvillo. We know that he's very excited. We know that he thinks of her like he thought about Conor when he first came in, like he thought about Joanna when she first came in, and look how these two have worked out. So I do have a concern that I think the best case scenario for me is a Calvillo win, and Joanne Calderwood then moves to 125 purely from a promotional standpoint. But I think this is one of those matchups for Calvillo where I don't think it's good for her, to be honest. I'd probably favour her to win the fight, but this is the type of fight that she could easily lose just by not being able to get the takedown, because she's not going to live with Joanne on the feet. That's for damn sure. Then the main event from that card is quite interesting, because we've got Gunnar Nelson versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, and I'm really surprised that's the main event. Granted, if Paul Craig had beaten Tyson Pedro back at UFC 209, Paul Craig would have got the shot, but in the main event, probably against like a Shogun Rua, for example. But obviously he's got Khalil Roundtree. Interesting one. Khalil's stand-up is awesome. His ground game needs a lot of work. So again, Paul Craig won't have any. Paul Craig will probably just look to pull him into his guard, and it seems like a good bounce-back fight for Paul Craig. But Khalil's really dangerous on the feet, so that'll be worth keeping an eye on. But yeah, Gunnar Nelson and Santiago Ponzinibbio. This is a strange main event, to be honest. But I mean, it's good to see Gunnar Nelson in the main event. I don't think Ponzinibbio's there yet, but I don't know what to expect. But anyway, let's go on to UFC 211. So we'll start from the bottom and work our way up. Prelims were fantastic on this show. Gadzimirad Antigolov defeated Joachim Christensen in 2:21 of the first round. Just a superior grappler. Took him down, took the back, rear naked choke. It's the second time he's done this in the UFC as well. He needs to step up in competition. He looks really impressive. And yeah, I just thought he was too strong and his grappling was too good. Enrique Barzola defeated Gabriel Benitez, a unanimous decision, 29-28 across the board. Barzola was struggling to get going in the first 90 seconds of this fight. Benitez was just lighting him up on the feet, but yeah, we came back and it was really just his wrestling that won him this fight. I thought Benitez won the first round. I thought Barzola came back into it but didn't really do enough to take away the first 90 seconds, and then from there I thought he won the second and the third, and it was a good fight. I definitely recommend going back and watching it. Courtney Casey and Jessica Aguilar was the featured bout on Fight Pass. 30-27 across the board for Courtney Casey. She looked fabulous here. Jessica Aguilar, at one point not that long ago, she was widely considered to be the best strawweight in the world, and injuries have really slowed her down. Now, she was always going to have some trouble with Courtney Casey. Casey actually came in as the favourite, and I think that in this fight, for me, I was looking for Courtney Casey to really show what she has, because I know how skilled she is. But I don't, even though she has 2 finishes in the UFC, I don't really feel like she's lived up to her full potential. She's not had easy matchups. Like her debut, Joanne Calderwood in Glasgow on 9 days' notice. She fought Claudia Gadelha in Brazil. That's not easy, but in this fight, I just thought she got everything right. Her stand-up looked good. She had a reach advantage, which she really used to her advantage. Her ground game was solid. Her up kicks were amazing. That was really interesting, because Aguilar knew that if she was able to get into her guard and rain down some ground and pound, that was where she could have a lot of success. But Casey just kept her at distance fantastically. There was a couple of good trips from Aguilar, but then she could never get on top. So this to me was Casey's best performance. I know she finished another 2 wins, and this one went to the judges, but I was really impressed. I'm not going to say that I think Casey could beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk by any means, but I think that Casey has the potential to be a top 5, maybe top 10, but possibly top 5 strawweight. Certainly top 10, but and that was a good way to show. I think Aguilar went into this rank 13, so Casey might have a ranking next to her name, but we'll see what happens. On to FX, as it was in America this time, although BT Sport is always here. James Vick knocked out Polo Reyes in 2:39, just massive. Vick's 6'3" and a lightweight. Polo Reyes couldn't deal with his range. It was just Vick just dominated. He's 7-1 in the UFC. And he put out in his post-fight interview that UFC needs to promote him, and he's right. So I hope James Vick gets something good next, to be honest. And people are really struggling with his size at lightweight. He's so tall and so rangy that he would be quite tall for a light heavyweight. He would be tall for a middleweight. He's fighting a lightweight. That's mental. So I always wonder how he makes the weight, to be honest. But he never looks too unhealthy at the official weigh-ins, so it's not a concern at the moment. Chase Sherman and Rashad Coulter won fight of the night. Next, this was amazing, but this had a bit of everything that you want in a kind of great fight. Was that you had 2 guys slugging it out, but you also had one guy dominating most of it, but he made a very big strategic error. I thought that Chase Sherman, in the first few minutes, he just leg kicked this guy to bits, and Coulter was struggling to stand halfway through the first round, and Sherman kind of pulled off that a little bit. So even though he was throwing the odd leg kick and Coulter was getting more wobbly and more wobbly, the volume of the leg kicks came down, and I genuinely thought about 3 minutes in this fight we were going to get a stoppage via TKO leg kicks, but Sherman made a big mistake by not capitalising on that. Into the second round, Sherman, by this point, Coulter can barely move on this leg. Sherman's probably a leg kick, maybe 2 away from just finishing this fight, and he just abandoned it completely and decided to have a stand-up war. He thought Coulter was a sitting duck and thought, I'm just going to throw bombs. And it allowed Coulter to make a comeback, and at one point it looked like he might make the comeback of the year. And that's in a year where we had Darren Elkins against Mirsan Bektic. So it was phenomenal, to be honest, this fight. In the end, Chase Sherman, 3:36 of the second round, backed him up against the cage after kind of fighting his way off, and then slept him with an elbow, a lovely short elbow. Coulter did the stanky leg. So fantastic fight. This might not get some love for fight of the year just because it was a prelim fight, and like I say, Chase Sherman's game plan in the second round was kind of stupid, even though he got the finish. But fabulous fight. You need to go and watch this. The other bonuses, just for posterity's purpose, Stipe Miocic and Jason Knight got performance bonuses, and Jason Knight was the next fight, knocked out Chaz Skelly in the third round. Brilliant grappling exchanges in the first couple of rounds, and yeah, I really impressed with Jason Knight. This guy is just, he gets better every time I see him, and he's already got a record that I think is 17-2. So I expect really big things about him. A really well-rounded fighter, a guy who's going to do good things in the featherweight division. It's hard to say what his ceiling is, but I mean, I don't expect him in a year's time, if he goes in with one of the best featherweights in the world, I don't see him getting murked, to be honest. I think he can live with a lot of people. Not necessarily saying he would win, but I think he could live with people. Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier was the main event on FX. Sorry, I've got this wristband on. I was actually at the fair earlier, and it's driving me nuts. So, yeah, Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier, this ended in a no contest at 4:12 of the second round. This was a fabulous fight until it happened, and I think there's a little bit of controversy about this, and I don't necessarily blame Herb Dean for the controversy much, right? But in the second round specifically, right, they both rocked each other, and Alvarez was being backed up against the cage, and he started swinging wildly, and he clipped Poirier, and then the fight just became crazy from this. So both guys had their bell rung by this point. Eddie Alvarez gets him down against the cage, and Poirier has one hand down. We were using the old rules in Dallas on Saturday, so one hand down, you're a downed opponent. Alvarez clips him with a knee to the head, and that was probably Herb Dean's biggest mistake, was that he didn't recognise this. But this is again an argument about this. The unified rules of MMA aren't unified at the moment, and this can't continue. So it was just so frustrating, to be honest. This fight absolutely drove me mad, to be honest, because it was such a good fight, but it ended in the way it did, and I feel for both guys, because the fact that we're using different rules in different places now. The unified rules of mixed martial arts, the new rules were supposed to come in on January the 1st, 2017. Some commissions adopted it straight away, so you know. When you're adopting it straight away, that's great. But I mean, there's some commissions that haven't done it now, and there's a lot of commissions that are saying they don't think they'll have it done till like September or October or anything like that, and it's just silly. It's not just hard for the referees, but in some ways it may jeopardise fighter safety, because if you don't, you're briefed before the fight what the rules are and this and that, but there's something about instinct, and a lot of this game is instinct, and when your instinct is that these are the rules of MMA, I know that I need to have two hands down, then you might see a situation where someone has one hand down, you're using the old rules, the guy thinks it's fair game and just knees the guy in the head, and that's when, this is a problem. So what ended up happening was the one hand down, knee in the head, Herb let go. The second one, Poirier kind of goes down, and he has one knee down and I think one hand down, and it's clear that he's a downed opponent, and Alvarez tees off and knees him in the head. Now, there was an argument to be made about a disqualification, and I thought Alvarez should have been disqualified, but under the rules there is a good argument to be made that wasn't a disqualification, and the reason being is that the intention of an illegal knee is not so much, how do I put this? The intention is really the key part, and it's impossible to prove that you knew you were committing a foul and did it deliberately anyway. Now, the rule should be more based on carelessness, and that's what this was. And Eddie Alvarez ended the fight by being careless. Now, I thought Poirier was winning the fight up until this point, and you could make the argument, right? And I know this is a rare situation, but you could make the argument that Alvarez got into one dominant position and kind of thought it was a way out. Now, I don't think that's what he was doing at all, right? But something like that could come up in the future. So, yeah, I there needs to be more. There needs to be more willingness to disqualify someone, and there certainly needs to be a better interpretation of rules, because A, the lack of the unified rules at the moment is really concerning, and B, I think that I'm so done with this. I think that it's very, very problematic going forward that you can just throw this, say you're confused with the rules, and not get a loss for it. So I think Poirier has appealed it. I don't think he's going to win the appeal. Kind of think he should, but I don't think he will. So, but the prelims were excellent on this card, really enjoyable. So the main card opened with Christoph Yoko and David Branch. Now, the last time I predicted a fight would be really, really boring was actually Mirsad Bektic and Darren Elkins, which was a fantastic fight. I predicted on the podcast the night before this would be a boring fight, and I had no idea. This was a terrible fight. Branch won, I think, a split decision. Let me double check. Yeah, 29-28, 28-29, 29-28. Just a dreadful fight, to be honest. The biggest criticism against Branch is that he's a boring fighter, and he did nothing here to change that. Frankie Edgar beat the piss out of Yair Rodriguez next. It was a doctor stoppage at the end of the second round. I mean, Edgar won the first round 10-8, just took him down and butchered him. Now, the big thing that came out of this fight was that they didn't put any impress on Yair Rodriguez's eye at the end of the first round, and by that point it was already getting pretty big. Second round, it was a bit more of the same. I thought the second round was a 10-9. I thought the first was a 10-8. Second round was a bit less dominant, but Yair did take some punishment. It was clear Edgar won the round. So Yair goes back to the corner, and as soon as he sits down, you know the fight's over. He can't see out the left eye. He tries to sell it, but it just wasn't happening. This was massive for Frankie Edgar. I think secretly the promotion would have kind of liked Yair Rodriguez to win this fight, because he's a Latin American star. He's 24 years old. He is almost always fantastic to watch, and this would have been the biggest win of his career. And you could have really pushed Yair to the point where it might be a little bit early, but you really could have pushed Yair to the point where you're talking about him taking the winner of Holloway versus Aldo at UFC 212 for the featherweight title. And I mean, he got a batter in here. He's obviously got a lot of time to turn it around, but this was a bad night for him. Edgar just too smart with his wrestling. I thought that they always say you don't want to kick a wrestler, but I thought Yair's kicks would keep him at distance here, and the more I thought about this, the more I thought Yair was going to win the fight, and I couldn't have been more wrong. Frankie Edgar, just a fantastic fighter. I think this guy's a Hall of Famer when he retires, and if I don't think this was the fight that put him over the top by any means. I think he was probably already over the top, but I think there was a lot of people, including me, down him going into this fight, and he looked vintage. I don't think he has a lot of wars left in him. Some of the crazy wars he had when he was younger, he can't really have a fight like that anymore, but he took Yair down at will and beat on him when he was on top, so really impressive. The third fight at the top, Damian Maia defeated Jorge Masvidal by split decision, 29-28, 28-29, 29-28. I had 29-28 Maia. I thought that Maia won the first, although he won like 4 minutes and 30 seconds of the first round. He had Masvidal's back for a while. Masvidal was able to get him off and get some decent ground and pound at the end of the second round, but end of the first round, sorry, but not enough to take the round for me. Masvidal, I thought, won the second round. He kept Maia away from him a lot better, boxed him a little at distance, and yeah, I thought that was Masvidal's round. Third round, Maia was just on his back. Now, I was almost more impressed with Masvidal in this fight than I was when he knocked out Cerrone, and the reason being is that we know that Masvidal's striking is really damn good, but what impressed me more was that he had Maia on top of him for about 7 minutes in this fight. Specifically, Maia had his back for about 5 minutes of this fight, and Masvidal survived. And I think that's really impressive when you look at, like, Damian Maia is the master of jiu-jitsu in the UFC. If you can survive Damian Maia on your back, then you're probably at that point where, I'm not saying you can't be submitted, but you're going to have to be rocked before you're getting submitted. You're going to have to be on Dream Street before somebody submits you in the future. So Masvidal's ground game we knew was quite good. His defensive ground game I thought was fantastic. Now Maia did enough to win this fight, and Dana did say that he's going to get the title shot next against Tyron Woodley, and I'm pleased because I think Maia's long overdue. So honestly, in that fight though, I would fancy Woodley just because I think Woodley will be too strong for him. Woodley will quite happily stay on his feet. Woodley will happily make this a boring fight and just stay as far away stay as far away from him as possible, and then come in with some shots. Maia will be able to take Woodley down, but I think Woodley's a good enough grappler that he will be able to stop himself getting into a bad position. That was my only thing about Masvidal. Maia got himself into some really dominant positions, but credit Masvidal. His hand fighting, especially when Maia was looking for chokes, was excellent. Co-main, Joanna Jędrzejczyk defeated Jessica Andrade, unanimous decision, 2 50-45s and a 50-44. Jędrzejczyk just absolutely outstanding in this fight. At the time, I scored the first round for Andrade. By about the fourth round, I kind of had it twirling in my head, and I thought I can't justify it. Now Andrade obviously caught her with the left hand, the left hook, which created a big swelling on Joanna's forehead. She was able to take her down twice. The first time she held her down for a little bit. The second time Joanna was able to get a whizzer and eventually fight it off. But that was why I gave Andrade the round at the time. But the more I thought about it, when Joanna was on the feet, her volume striking was a warning of what was to come, and the last 4 rounds were just incredibly one-sided. I don't say incredibly one-sided in that they were all 10-8 rounds by any means, but I mean there was no denying who was the better fighter. I think a lot of people had an idea going into this fight because Andrade cut from bantamweight for this run at strawweight. I think a lot of people thought that Joanna was going to struggle with her size, but I mean, Joanna's got the size on Andrade. I mean, the fact that Andrade ever fought a bantamweight to me is mad. I mean, I think she's 5'2". She was a tiny bantamweight. And to be honest, with the introduction of flyweight, which I will talk about when we talk about Invicta, I did consider the possibility that she might consider going to flyweight, but she should stay at strawweight. I think strawweight suits her more than flyweight. But anyway, Joanna's striking in the last 4 rounds was just devastating. I thought this was her best performance of her career. I know she butchered Carla Esparza to win the belt, but Joanna just looked on another planet. And this was, in some ways, a Demetrius Johnson performance. And I mean that in 2 ways. One, I know there was some casual fans that were kind of bored by this fight. And it seems to be when you get a one-sided fight where someone's skill is just through the roof. Some people can get a little bit bored with that. I was loving it, to be honest. I thought it was amazing. But what you did notice actually was the crowd in Dallas was pretty hot for this fight. For this card, sorry. But they were kind of quiet in this fight. So, I think Joanna is a star. I don't think she's a mega star, but I think she's definitely a star. I would like to see her get an opportunity to headline a pay-per-view and see what happens. I think the trouble being is that I don't know. Andrade was the last girl I thought that could beat her in UFC at the moment. Out of the other contenders, you've got Rose Namajunas, and then obviously you've got the Kovalkiewicz and Claudia Gadelha match coming up at UFC 212. So the next challenger is either going to be Thug Rose or it's going to be the winner of Gadelha Kovalkiewicz. And I don't think either of the three will beat Joanna. Joanna's already beat Claudia twice. Granted, the first one was controversial and it was a split decision over 3 rounds. The second one, Claudia excuse me, I've had this cough for about a month, it's driving me mad. Claudia started really well in the second fight. I think I gave Claudia the first 2 rounds, but it was clear at the end of the 4th round that Joanna was 2-2 and was completely on the upswing while Gadelha tired a little bit. So Kowalkiewicz had that one moment in the 4th round at Madison Square Garden, but other than that, Joanna was just on another level. And Namajunas has got really good potential, but if I was to take the 4 fighters on face value, I'd probably say Namajunas is 4th in that table. So I do think Namajunas will get the shot next. She certainly deserves it. She's certainly not had her opportunity, but I don't see any path to victory for Rose. I'd love to be surprised. It would certainly shake things up, but I don't see a path to victory. And I wonder if Joanna's becoming that sort of level of Demetrius Johnson, where she is so efficient and she is so good, and no one can beat her, that people lose a little bit of interest. Because I think that when you're a hardcore MMA fan, Demetrius Johnson's almost like a little treat. You know, no one else really watches him, but when you watch his fights, they're amazing. When he submitted Wilson Hayes is like one of the highest level black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu out there, and DJ submitted him. That's insane. But no one, you don't hear anything about DJ outside the bubble. You very rarely hear anything about Joanna outside the bubble as well, although that might change now that she's signed with Paradigm. We'll see what happens there. And then on to the main event. I feel that Stipe Miocic could be a star, but he's not there yet, and that was kind of where I was talking about at the start, where I just feel that UFC's cold at the moment. I think it was last Friday or last Saturday, a mate of mine who's more of a boxing fan than an MMA fan texted me, and he was talking about how boxing is booming at the moment, and UFC is a disappointment at the moment. And he's not completely wrong in some ways. I think he oversold it a little bit, but it kind of comes on to the point that if you've got a hot product, you can kind of do no wrong. And when you look at a year like 2016 in MMA, when you look at a year that did 5 pay-per-views that did 1 million buys or more, you're talking about 196 Diaz McGregor, 200, which was it was Brock Lesnar and Mark Hunt, and then Miesha Tate and Amanda Nunes in the main event. UFC 202, the rematch with McGregor and Diaz. 205, the Madison Square Garden card. 207, Rousey's return. I didn't think it was too much of a stretch, and I did say it on the podcast that I did, I think on New Year's Day, that I didn't think pay-per-view this year was going to do 1 million buys, and the product is cold at the moment. And I think if the product was hot at the moment and there was other stuff going on, then Stipe Miocic's run at the moment, where he is, his last 4 fights, he has 4 wins, 2 defences, 1 where he won the title, and they're all first round knockouts. People would be talking about that, especially people would be talking about how it's the rebirth of the heavyweight division. But I kind of feel that if you compare boxing and MMA, combat sports in general are very boom or bust. They have their hot periods and they have their cold periods, and your cold period just comes on like that, and then your hot period just comes on like that. I just realised I clicked my finger so poorly there. Like when you think about, if you go back to like the start of 2015, right, MMA was starting to heat up a little bit. Boxing was on the downswing, but it was kind of saved by the Pacquiao-Mayweather fight, right? And the Pacquiao-Mayweather fight was like the last hurrah in some ways. Not ever, you know, because we know what's happening in boxing at the moment, but at the time it felt like this fight has to be good to just get some momentum for boxing. And it wasn't a great fight, Pacquiao and Mayweather, let's be honest. And then from then till the start of this year, so you're talking about May 2015 to the start of this year, boxing's been on a right downswing. Whereas in that time, you think about the emergence of Conor McGregor as a big star. It was July 2015 when he beat Mendes for the interim title, and that build to the Aldo fight was already building while Pacquiao and Mayweather was going on. Obviously Aldo pulled out the first time, and it was in the middle of Ronda Rousey's throwing girls on their head and finishing them in 15 seconds run. And at the time it felt like MMA could do no wrong. We got into 2016, Conor was still undefeated, Rousey had just been knocked out by Holmes, so things had been thrown on their head. And 2016 was just an amazing year for MMA. It was probably, I mean, it's hard to argue that I think it was the biggest year in sports history. But when we got towards the end of 2016, when you think about all that's gone on in that little MMA boom from 2015 till the end of 2016, you think about the Reebok deal, which has festered fighter unhappiness more than has ever happened before. You have never seen a situation that, I mean, there's things that I forget. It's just popped into my head that I'd forgotten that Aldo threatened to retire like 9 months ago. And there's just little things that keep coming up, guys not taking fights. And to me, a lot of the unhappiness and a lot of the things that are going wrong at the moment are kind of the things that MMA always promised that it was not going to be, and always the things that brought boxing down. And whereas now in 2017, MMA pretty much on the 30th of December was in the middle of its hot streak, and it came grinding to a halt. When Rousey got knocked out in 48 seconds, Conor was already away, was going to have the baby. No one had really stepped up into the void. Obviously, Brock Lesnar was the idea. Brock Lesnar got himself suspended. John Jones was the idea. He was suspended. Nate Diaz was an idea. He had disappeared. Nick Diaz was still suspended. There just wasn't that natural step to what was going to keep the momentum going. And when you think about that build between UFC 207 and UFC 208, it was about 6 weeks until 208, which was headlined by the Holly Holm Jermaine Durandamy fight. Cyborg could have been that person. You know, that could have been a big deal. If Cyborg had went and destroyed somebody, then that could have got the year off to a good start in terms of pay-per-view, but it just didn't happen. So boxing, to me, is going through a bit of a boom, and it shows how little can make a boom when you think about it. Now, I don't follow boxing that much, to be honest, but certainly over here in Britain, you have the Joshua Klitschko fight. It does 90,000 people at Wembley. I don't know what the pay-per-view numbers were like, but I mean, it was a big deal. You look at the rematch between, or is it a rematch? Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin, and these feel like big deals. Now, whether they are big deals at the box office or whatever is kind of immaterial, because boxing feels hot at the moment. And the idea of the Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather fight, which I've shit on quite a few times because I don't think it's going to happen, even though I know Conor signed something this week to make it happen, but we'll worry about that. So MMA needs a turnaround anyway, and I hope I suspect UFC 214 might be the first chance. But anyway, let's get back to the fight. Miocic and Dos Santos. Dos Santos backed up against the cage a lot, and I mean, that was always going to suit Stipe's game. I thought it became quite clear after about a minute of this fight that Stipe was going to knock him out. Dos Santos stood in front of him, he backed up against the cage and never really did much, and Miocic was able to feint a left, and when he feinted the left, Dos Santos went right back to the cage, and there was nowhere for his head to go. Stipe went, thank you, dropped him with the right, game over. Stipe really impresses me. I'm interested to see what he can do against Cain Velasquez, if Velasquez can ever get fit. That could be a really interesting fight. I think we're very close to the point where you can make the argument that Stipe and Cain are the two best heavyweights of all time, and it would be a shame if Cain can't get fit, because I would love to see that fight. Maybe a little bit early to say that about Stipe, but when you look at how hard it's been for guys to hold on to that heavyweight title, he's tied the record for defences with 2, you know, and yeah, I'm really impressed with Stipe. The other guy that's obviously been impressive, and I've talked about him a lot, is Francis Ngannou. Francis isn't ready for Stipe yet, but I don't think he's too far away. So yeah, UFC 211. It was a really damn good card, but I think after a few lackluster cards, I think that this card was really showed me where I think MMA is at the moment. I just think it's a little bit cold, but we'll see what happens over the coming months. So Bellator 179 is happening tonight. I think if I'm right, I'm looking at the time as I'm recording this, it's just gone 8:30 UK time. I think the main card in the building starts at 9. We're getting a couple of prelims on Spike TV UK at 9, and then we're getting on a bit of a tape delay the main card at 10 o'clock. So I'm going to cover it on the site and basically try and hide from social media without spoilers. So the biggest disappointment really was Michael Page and Derek Anderson was supposed to be the co-main, but Michael Page dropped out. Main event is Paul Daly against Rory McDonald. This is a phenomenal fight. I mean, to me, like 2 years ago I'd have taken Rory McDonald to win this fight, but you only have so many wars in you, and I think there are a good number of people who think that Rory McDonald versus Robbie Lawler at 189 was the best fight in UFC history, but that comes at a price, and Rory McDonald took enough of a beating in that fight he took the kind of beating in that fight that some fighters take in 3 years. That was just a crazy fight, and sometimes it's hard to recover from that. So McDonald's had a long layoff, so that might help him. Paul Daly's the type of guy that is a top level welterweight regardless. I mean, he's not in the UFC because of what he did to Josh Koscheck. I think it was UFC 113, and I mean, he'll never be back. But UFC's loss and his stupidity has been to the absolute gain of Bellator, and this is a cracking main event, especially in London. So I'm not going to do picks for this card, to be honest, but I'm really interested to see what can happen. My big concern is for Rory McDonald is his chin, because it's always hard to see a fight like he had against Lawler and see him come back. It's very difficult. Liam McGeary and Linton Vassell, I mean, this has fireworks written all over it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an entertaining fight. But the crowd's going to be interesting for this one anyway. Czech Congo and Augusto Sakai. Czech Congo looks revitalised at the moment, so I mean, he doesn't have long left, but his last couple of performances in Bellator have been really damn good. So excited to see what Czech Congo can do. There hasn't been a proper heavyweight champion in Bellator for ages, and if Congo wins this fight, I think he's probably going to be in that fight for the belt. There's a few names out there. Czech Congo and Bobby Lashley might be the fight. We'll see what happens there. Dan Edwards and Alex Lahore. I'll admit I don't know a lot about them. And Baby Slice, Kevin Ferguson Jr. against Dariel Griffin. Baby Slice, obviously the son of the late Kimbo Slice. He was supposed to make his Bellator debut last year, but he lost his fight, I think on weigh-ins. And then when he eventually did get his debut, he lost to Aaron Hamilton. He was submitted in the second round, and yeah, he didn't look great on the ground, but he's not the type of prospect. I mean, when you look at Bellator, right, if you look at like James Gallagher, you look at Ed Ruth, you look at Terrell Fortune, you look at Aaron Pico that's about to make his debut. These are all guys that have been signed to make their professional debut in Bellator, and UFC can't really do that. But to me, I think that has been to Bellator's gain, and I don't put Kevin Ferguson Jr. in any of that kind of company. But as much as these guys could bust, he could surprise people. He's young and he's green, and the thing about young green guys is they can get better, and we'll see how he gets on against Dariel Griffin. So that's your Bellator card. 10 o'clock I'll be doing main card coverage. It's on Channel 5 in the UK. I would recommend to everybody to check that card out, because Bellator hardly ever run live in the UK at all. In fact, this isn't even live, it's on an hour's tape delay. But for me, if you look at the way Bellator's going at the moment, for all that I've kind of talked about how UFC's cold, Bellator in its own sense kind of feels like it's hot as a promotion, even if the sport's cooled off a bit, because the sport lives and dies by UFC at the moment. But when you think of Bellator, they've got obviously this card in London with Rory McDonald's debut, Bellator 180 and Bellator NYC when they run the Garden on pay-per-view. I don't know how that's going to do on pay-per-view, but that's going to be a big night for the company. We've got the opening of the flyweight division in Bellator, which came with fanfare at the time, and I just feel like Bellator's going in the right direction, and these next couple of months are going to be quite big. From a UK standpoint though, if you don't tune in tonight, then you won't get Bellator 180 live, and I think that would be a right shame. I think that would be a really big shame. We talked about it on the podcast. If you check out iTunes, or if you check out the By the Minute website and on the podcast network, we had Matthew Kaplovic, director of Girl Fight a Muay Thai Story. We talked about it. We talked about Bellator a lot. He's been doing a bit of work with Spike, and Bellator is definitely going in the right direction. So excited for this card tonight, and really excited for 180. I just hope that we can watch it live in the UK. It would be really nice. So tomorrow night, Invicta FC 23. So it was announced a couple of weeks ago that the Ultimate Fighter 26 will crown a women's flyweight champion, and it's about time. I have been ranting and raving about this for a while. I'm really glad I don't have to do this rant anymore. The tryouts, I think, are Tuesday. They're sometime next midweek, and obviously there's a lot of flyweights on this card. I think the top three fights are flyweight and high level flyweights. So quick run through this card. Shiana Rincon and Brooksy Bayard. Rincon's 0-0, Bayard's 1-1. I'll be honest, I don't know about any of them. Eddie Ann Gomez and Pam Sorensen. Eddie Ann Gomez, good fighter. Pam Sorensen, a bit of an up-and-comer, so this could be a really interesting one. Tiffany Van Soest and Christine Ferreira. Tiffany Van Soest obviously comes across with a decorated kickboxing background. Has a chance to be a really big star, but her ground game just hasn't developed yet. She's 0-2 as a pro, and she hasn't looked good when she's been taken to the ground. Her stand-up is really good, but Christine Ferreira, who's 1-0, she made her debut, I think it was Invicta 21, she almost kicked Rachel Ostovich's head off. So, Ferreira's a really good prospect coming out of MMA Gold in California, so this could be tough for Tiffany, but I don't know what Christine's ground game's like. I'm really not sure. Her striking game is good, so if Tiffany can get things going, then this could be her first win, but I like Christine Ferreira. I think she's got a really good chance to be good. She looked awesome in her debut. Liz Phillips and Kelly Fazolds. I need to check what weight this fight is at, to be honest. Let me check, because I think I'll be... Yeah, it's back at bantamweight. These two are obviously ex-UFC fighters. Kelly Fazolds impressed me more than Liz Phillips did, but I like them both, so could be a really good fight at bantamweight, but I kind of feel that, especially if Liz Phillips loses, I kind of feel like she's on her way out. Kelly Fazolds would drop to 3-3. Phillips would drop to 6-6, and she's been on a bit of a losing streak. She went back to Invicta and got knocked out in her last fight, so I'm a bit worried about Liz Phillips, but we'll see what happens. Henrique Tiburcio and Tessa Simpson. Tiburcio, the former atomweight champion. Tessa Simpson's got great potential, but Tiburcio's probably going to have too much for her in this fight. Andrea Lee and Liz Tracy. We had Andrea on the show. I will leave the link below in the... If you're not watching this live, I'll leave the link below. If not, check the channel. Andrea's opened as something like a 1-7 favourite for this fight. She's I think the biggest favourite on the card. Liz Tracy's got good grappling. I tried to find something about Liz Tracy when I interviewed Andrea. I couldn't find anything, but I actually found one of her fights afterwards, and I was impressed with the ground game. Her striking game's okay, but it's not as good as Lee's. I mean, Lee's striking game is very high level for that division, and her takedown defense is okay. Her ground game's good enough. Tracy's only chance is to take it to the ground, and if Lee has already started to light her up before she gets it to the ground, then it might not matter anyway. So, I mean, Andrea Lee's a big favourite for a reason. Co-main event, Sarah D'Alelio and Roxanne Modafferi. I interviewed Roxanne as well. It's on the website. It was actually a written interview. Go check that out a couple of weeks ago. I reckon both of these girls, certainly Roxanne. Roxanne told me she's going to try out for Tough, and I can't imagine Tough 26 without Roxanne Modafferi. I really can't. Sarah D'Alelio probably will, although she's getting on a bit. D'Alelio's opened as a slight favourite, and that's probably where this should be. Roxanne's got great jiu-jitsu and awkward stand-up. D'Alelio's got good power, so slight edge to D'Alelio. The bookies have got this nailed, to be honest, but don't count out Roxanne. She's a damn good fighter. And the main event, Agnieszka Nitzwitz and Vanessa Porto. Agnieszka's 9-0. She's, I think, 22 years old. She is the best flyweight prospect in the world. Vanessa Porto potentially might be a little bit too much, but I think the Pole will win this fight, to be honest. Every time I see Agnieszka, she gets better and better. And there was a report came out that Agnieszka is probably not going to be interested in doing Tough 26. I think if she did Tough 26, she might win it. She actually might win it. Now, obviously, the Tough 26 scenario, you're looking at some of the best flyweights in the world from outside the promotion, combined with girls who are going to either come down from bantamweight or go up from strawweight. And at the moment, I think Nitzwitz is the best flyweight outside of UFC at the moment. I know Jennifer Maia is the Invicta champion, but Agnieszka just impresses me so much. I'd love to see Agnieszka fight Jennifer Maia, to be honest, and I would have loved to have seen that for the Invicta title, but I think it's inevitable that won't happen, so that's a bit of a shame, but it might happen in UFC, who knows. I would take Agnieszka to win this fight. I think she she is special, and I think eventually we are going to see, I'd say probably 2, maybe 3 years down the line, we are going to see Joanna fight Agnieszka, another Poland versus Poland fight at flyweight for the title. Joanna will set the strawweight record, or at least try to set the strawweight record, but I think she'll get it. And then I think she might consider, she will consider going up to flyweight, but I think she might consider just dropping strawweight altogether and going up. And Agnieszka will naturally progress to that point where she will be in the title picture. She's just that good. So Invicta tomorrow night. It starts at 1 AM our time. It's 8 o'clock Eastern. It's on UFC Fight Pass. If you sign up for your 3-day trial to watch this card, if you don't have Fight Pass, you won't regret it. But get it done. We'll have live coverage on the website. We will do a post-fight show probably tomorrow after Invicta 23, where we'll talk a bit of Bellator 179, and then we'll talk this card as well. So so we'll start wrapping up just now. I went on quite a few tangents with what's been going on the last few weeks, so I don't want to go on another one. Like I say, tonight 10 o'clock, check out By the Minute for Bellator 179. Watch it on Channel 5 as well, just watch along. And then tomorrow night, Invicta FC 23, keep an eye on the website. Go back and check the interviews we've done recently. Jamie Moyle was on the show from UFC. She's fighting the UFC 212. We had Andrea Lee, who's fighting tomorrow. We had Emily Ducote, who's welcoming Valerie Letourneau to Bellator. We've got a couple in the pipeline that hopefully we'll get out in the next couple of weeks. We'll see how that goes. But thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please, punch in the mic, please subscribe at the bottom. Thanks very much, and I will speak to you again sometime.